let's talk Andrew Tate. Did I get your attention? Hello everyone, I'm Sarah from Everyday Starlet. Welcome to my channel. I make videos to inspire you to be the star of your own life. I had a request to talk about Andrew Tate, and I hesitated talking about it for a few reasons. For one, I don't pay a huge amount of attention to his content. I'm not saying that in a way to like throw shade on anybody. It's just, well, for one, I'm not his target audience. Let's be serious, right? I'm probably not even a woman in the age range that his target audience is looking for, because I'm pretty sure his target audience thinks that women are washed up when they hit 23. So I'm well past that. But the main reason why I don't tend to pay attention to him, why I didn't pay as much attention to, say, Kevin Samuels, the fresh fit guy, I don't know, like the kind of the quote-unquote alpha male accounts, as they say. One of the reasons why, even though it's relevant to my platform to pay attention to that kind of content, however, I don't spend a lot of time looking at that kind of content simply because I will fully admit that I am a recovering there are no good men out there woman. And, you know, I spent a lot of years in industries around men who were not good men. A lot of whom probably follow Andrew Tate and a lot of these guys. And, you know, it's taken me a long time to believe that there are good men out there, and it's still something that I work through. I personally actively seek out accounts, you know, male leaders who I do believe represent the type of masculinity that I believe is healthy, that I believe is what I'm looking for, that I really do believe is what most women in the world are looking for. And I try not to focus too much on men who I don't believe are representative of healthy masculinity. And I don't think a lot of these guys are representative of that, and I'm gonna get into that a little bit more. For me, spending a lot of time focused on the things that, you know, the Andrew Tates of the world are talking about is not necessarily healthy for me, so I don't spend a lot of time doing that. And I would highly encourage anybody out there, male or female, if you're finding content out there that somebody is presenting that either doesn't resonate with you, and this includes my content, either doesn't resonate with you or is actually making you feel actively bad about society in general, or making you think that there are no good women or that there are no good men or anything like that, I would encourage you to not focus so much time on that content. Be careful about what you consume, and I'm not just talking about food, but just any kind of media that you're consuming, and includes who you follow on social media and stuff. I just think it's really important if we all really stepped up and actually took a look at the type of content we're consuming. Like, even if, say for example, there are probably a lot of people who might be watching this video who watch, you know, Andrew Tate or people like him and their content to solely hate on them. How is that healthy for you to be constantly absorbing that information that's just making you angry, right? So again, I understand there are people out there who are gonna listen to his content, pay attention to his content, and not just him, this is not just about him, but anybody's content that is actively making you angry simply so you can argue about it on social media. I get it, like some people want to argue and some people want to debate, and I honor that. I was raised by a lawyer. I'm very familiar with the concept of people just arguing for the sake of arguing, so I understand that. However, I do think that you also need to be aware of when it starts to become destructive to you and when it might be unhealthy for you. So that's why I don't particularly listen to a lot of his content, simply because it's just not healthy for me to be in that mindset of thinking that that's how men are thinking, because I don't really believe that that's healthy masculinity, and we're gonna get into that in a minute. When I talk about people like Andrew Tate, there is a lot of things that I have heard of his content I very, very much disagree with. However, I have been tagged in some videos, some clips of things that he said that I actually do agree with and I do align with. So I'm not somebody who's going to sit here and be like, yep, everything he's ever said is wrong, and I think everything is wrong, and I think everything is, but you know, even if I don't agree with a lot of something that somebody's saying, I can still own up to the fact that there are gonna be certain things that people are gonna say that I will agree with, that I am on board with. And if somebody is right about something, I will honor that they're right about something. And I'm okay with that. In the same way that there are people who I follow, people who I do listen to, who I agree with, say, like 99% of what they say. That 1% that I disagree with, I don't all of a sudden throw out everything else that they've ever said and be like, I just disagree with this person. No, I honor the things that resonate with me, and I just, you know, choose to acknowledge that there are some areas with this other person who is another sovereign being that I just don't agree with. And I think it's in the same way that I can hear something that, say, you know, some of these alpha male podcasts might say that I do align with, and I can acknowledge that I align with something that they say. And I can also say, okay, but their overall message doesn't really align for me, so this is not a person who I'm going to be following and actively engaging with simply because overall I don't tend to align with them. But I'm more than willing to acknowledge when I agree with someone on something, and I'm all for finding common ground. I also want to acknowledge that I do think that, you know, the Andrew Tates, and I do think that he's not the only one, and I think there's a lot of people who are coming up. I think the death of Kevin Samuels really kind of opened up a space that people are looking to fill in this kind of like alpha male space. I want to acknowledge why I think that these guys are reaching this popularity. And look, I come from a background of stand-up comedy, working in the entertainment business. I'm on social media, so like I respect the marketing game. Like I respect the hustle. I respect people who know how to brand themselves, who know how to market themselves, who know how to find their audience, whether or not I like them or not. I mean, I know Dane Cook is in the news a lot, and I came up in stand-up comedy, you know, when he really reached his success. I don't think Dane Cook's a funny comic. Never have. Don't really respect him much as a comedian. I certainly don't respect his love life, but that's a whole other story. However, I respect the way that he marketed his comedy career. And if people don't know the background of Dane Cook's marketing career, and he really revolutionized how comedians used social media in order to gain a following, and he really changed the game when it came to that, and I respect that. I don't have to respect him. I don't have to respect his style, his craft. I don't have to respect anything about him, but I do respect his marketing. So as far as being able to sell yourself to an audience when it comes to, you know, a lot of these alpha male accounts, I can respect the hustle. I totally can. I don't always think that it is in the best interests of our society for some of these messages to be getting out there, but I respect the ability for these guys to be getting their message out there. I think one of the reasons why these guys are so popular is because, and this is something I've talked about in a lot of other videos, that I think one of the biggest problems we have in our society right now is a lack of healthy masculine leadership. Whether that be in fathers, father figures, just healthy masculine leaders overall. We don't have a lot of great representation of healthy masculine leadership in our society. I have a lot of videos talking about my thoughts on some of the conspiracies and some of the reasons for that, but I'm not going to dive into that in this video too much. I do think that's by design. I think it's by design to weaken us, to separate families. I'm not going to dive into that. I have a lot of other videos talking about that. However, most cultures believe that men need masculine leaders to guide them into masculinity. Masculinity is something that is earned. It's something that men have to be initiated into. Young boys will stay young boys until they get initiated into their masculinity. In most cultures, it's not just the father figure, it's actually by the masculine elders in the tribe or in the culture. When you don't have that masculine leadership, you just get boys who stay boys. And I think that's what we're seeing now with this sort of rampant idea of man children. And I think that's one of the reasons why there was a study that came out recently about, you know, the record number of like single lonely men. And I think that one of the reasons for that is because women don't want to raise adult men, you know, along with raising their children. And I think that's because we have not had healthy masculine leadership guiding boys into their natural masculinity. And I know that there are a lot of men who are, you know, they're fighting that. They want to stay boys. They want to stay in childhood, and they don't really know how to step into their masculinity, and some of them are fighting actually be doing it, because to be honest, I mean, if you really look at my 300 breakdown, some of the initiation processes with actually going from boyhood to manhood are pretty tough. You know, I mean, because being a masculine man is not an easy job. It's not. So, you know, it's natural for boys to kind of fight that, and that's where the masculine elders really stepped in. But I think one thing that we're seeing in our society is men are craving it. They are craving healthy masculine leadership. And it was actually, I forget who it was that said it, but I remember seeing it online. There was a man who was saying that he believes that the reason why Jordan Peterson is become so iconic is because he's the father figure that so many men never had. He is that kind of like you know, tell it like it is. You know, he's a scholar, so he has his certain way of demonstrating his intelligence of sending his message. And there are a lot of other men out there who really are stepping up into leadership roles, either coming from a similar place to Jordan Peterson or coming from a different field, but still having that same, you know, powerful leadership quality. I'm pretty sure, I forget his last name, but it's Jocko. I don't follow a lot of his content, but I do know the video popped up where he was talking about the similarities in his message to Jordan Peterson's, and how, you know, one came from a very military background and one came from a very scholarly background, and how similar their messages really were. So I think it goes to show that you don't necessarily have to have a certain type of background in order to be a masculine leader, or, you know, not every man's journey into masculinity is going to look exactly the same, especially in our current society where there are so many different areas. It's not like in the film 300 you had young boys who were only trained to be Spartan warriors. That was their goal. In today's society, not every young boy is going to be led into masculinity in the same sense, because not everybody's path is going to be the same. You know, we're so much more multifaceted today. But young boys are craving that leadership, and I think grown men in our society today who haven't had that leadership are craving that so much, which is, again, the popularity of people like Jordan Peterson, of Jocko, and Joe Rogan, I think, is another one. Different aspects of a representation of masculine energy that men are being drawn to because they're looking for that leadership. Men are craving that leadership. The problem is when you leave that gap there where, you know, there are some men stepping into that healthy leadership, but there still is a lack, it leaves that window for very unhealthy masculine leadership to step in. And I think that that definitely was what, you know, what Kevin Samuels was, for sure, was a very fatherly figure. He was an older man and he was in his 50s. You know, Andrew Tate is a little bit younger. He's younger than I am, so I obviously don't think of him as being a father figure, but I'm told that a great deal of his audience is actually teen boys. He would be more of a father figure representation for much younger boys. And again, I'm going to argue that it's not a healthy representation of masculinity. However, when you're a young boy and you're looking for guidance, you're going to find it in wherever you think you can find it, right? And you know, let's admit, like, his marketing skills, his sort of flash, his style can be very appealing, especially to young people who are looking for guidance. I mean, this is gonna be controversial, I know, because I'm gonna compare Andrew Tate to gang violence, but in reality it's a similar thing. I mean, there's been so many research studies showing that the reason why, and this typically affects young boys, end up in gangs is because they're looking for family, they're looking for connection, they're looking for role models for you know, connection with, you know, sometimes father figures and older people, or, you know, brotherhood from other, you know, men in a similar age group. They're seeking that, and they seek that in gangs that end up getting them involved in violence and crime and things like that. And it can be really tempting if you're somebody who doesn't know where else to look, or if you're enticed by a certain lifestyle, or you're kind of like lured in because of a certain way of life or something, or you don't know any other way of life, things like that. Like, I think that there are so many young boys and even grown men who just haven't stepped out of boyhood, who are vulnerable to manipulative men coming in and actually guiding them in the wrong direction. And I think that that's another side effect of not having strong, healthy father figures in our society, which is why I mean, I'll be the first person to share, you know, Jordan Peterson quotes on my, you know, my Instagram stories, or, you know, if I do follow a lot of men who are, I believe, are very great masculine leaders, and I try to share their content and promote their content. I do know I get some hate for that sometimes, because I get men who are like, how dare you as a woman tell men how to be? And I'm like, I'm not telling men how to be, I'm literally just sharing and supporting this man who I do think has a great message. I know it's controversial sometimes, but at the end of the day, I want to see healthy masculine leadership really become more common, and I want that message to get out there, because I think the more that that gets out there, the more that men realize that there are healthy masculine leaders, that there are father figures, that there are good men out there. In the same way that I think if women know there are good men out there, women are going to feel safer. They're going to feel more comfortable being in their feminine, being their natural selves, not constantly being, you know, guarded and on alert. If they really do feel like there are healthy masculine protectors and providers out there, women are going to be happier. And I think men are going to be happier because they're going to know where to go for that leadership and that guidance. They're going to know where to find a men's group that is aligned with them and things like that. So I think that's so important. And I know that this ended up talking a lot about fathers and father figures and things like that. Very appropriate because I want to show a clip. This is actually Andrew Tate talking about his father. And I want to share the clip and I want to mention a few things. There's some things I actually agree with in this clip and some things I very much disagree with. Before I show the clip, I want to state that first of all, I don't know Andrew Tate. I don't know him personally. I don't know if how he represents himself is the same as who he is in real life because I don't know him. I don't know all of his content. So I'm not at all personalizing this. I didn't know his father. So I'm just going to comment on the things that are said and represented in this particular clip. So none of this is meant to be a personal attack on anybody. It's just simply talking about the way that the situation is represented in this particular clip. So let me show you the clip.
If anyone who's watched my Twitter knows I super really believed I had the best father in the world. Yeah. And my father was absolutely a renegade. He was a world level chess player who traveled the world, played chess here and there, gambled all his money, fucked anything that moved, and that's who he was. And he was a hero, and he's my hero. Like, he was a G. Like, I never sat there and thought, oh, I wish he stayed home and watched cartoons with me.
And he had 3 kids.
And he had 3 children. Yeah, exactly. He had 3 children that we know about. Maybe a couple others. And that's who he was. And he did his job as a father fantastically, and he can do it a couple days a week because a father, if you're good enough, can instill discipline and instill values. Yeah. You haven't got to be there all the time. I really do believe that's a mother's job. And I was happy with the way I was raised. And I look at him. You know, it's actually funny. I'll tell you a quick story about him. When my mom and dad split up, we moved to England, and my sister stopped talking to my dad because obviously my mom was upset because he split up, and my dad cheated, and my sister stopped talking to them. And me and my brother.
Can we just explain the quotation marks for cheating?
Okay, we can explain it. We'll explain cheating. Yeah. I'll come back to it in a second.
I mean, she should have expected it. I mean, that's who he was.
You know, but when my sister stopped talking to my dad, me and my brother obviously still spoke to him, and he said, "Boys, when you're older, you'll understand." And now I'm older, I understand. Yeah, he fucked a girl.
So the way that Andrew Tate talks about his father, and again, don't know these people personally, just going by what is said in this clip, is the epitome of wounded feminine energy. His father was a gambler, a philanderer. It shows that he, first of all, has no self-control. He obviously had addiction issues, which is all very wounded feminine energy. Masculine energy is about discipline. It is about focus. It is about a drive. It is about protecting and providing. None of that is evident in the description in this clip. Not saying that might not have actually been evident in real life. I don't know. But in this clip, the way it is represented, first of all, if you're a gambler and you're gambling away all your money, as he said, you're not providing for your family. Financially, you're clearly not providing for your family. So you're not being a provider. You're not being a protector if you are running around with other women. Because an aspect of being a protector is obviously, for one, obviously protecting your family from outside intruders. However, if you're sleeping with other women, you're putting yourself in a position where you are potentially picking up things from other women. You could potentially be impregnating other women, which is not protecting your family. Okay, bringing those things back to your wife, the woman, the mother of your children, that's not protecting her. Protecting her is being loyal to her. It's being devoted to her. You cannot protect a woman and be sleeping with other women. That's just not how it works. So if you want to be masculine and you want to be a protector, protecting your wife from your sexual urges towards other women is a part of that. It's a part of being a protector. Not gambling away all your money is a very big part of being a provider. Not the only aspect of being a provider, because being a provider is also providing safety, providing loyalty. Those things are part of being a provider for your family. Okay, so this idea that, I don't know if he was financially taking care of his family, although it does seem like the way he's representing it is that he gambled away all of his money. But that is not masculine energy. The way it's represented here seems a lot like we're talking about a father who was running away from something and trying to not face something or not deal with something, and was basically distracting himself with all kinds of, you know, life's pleasures. And, you know, if a man wants to be in that wounded feminine energy, that's on him, but those things affect your family. And obviously, as he mentioned in the clip, you know, his parents divorced, his sister would not speak to his father, so she obviously did not feel like she had a great representation of a father, which I would say, yes, being a father figure to your sons is important. Being a father figure to your daughter, you could argue, might even be a little bit more important. I don't really like to get into the more or less important, but it's hugely important. So being a masculine protector and provider for your wife and your children, that's masculine energy. Running around and partying all the time and being a complete slave to your addictions, that's wounded feminine energy. A lot of people ask me about, you know, wounded feminine energy in men and things like that. This is a representation of it right there. I do know that there are a lot of people who have taken this clip and have said that obviously Andrew Tate's platform is just a desperate attempt for him to impress his father. I'm not going to delve into that psychology. It's possible, but I don't really know him well enough to know that and make that assumption. There are a couple things he talked about in this clip that I do agree with. One, when he talked about the role of a mother and a mother actually being there and being there for her children. Absolutely agree with that, 100%. I do think that is really important, and I think that a mother being there and taking care of her children and nurturing her children is incredibly important and something we've gotten away from a ton in our society. The problem is, if you don't have a healthy masculine husband and father, that's going to be really difficult for most people. As he said, his parents got divorced. I don't know at what stage his parents got divorced, but you know, if you have a father figure who is running around and putting himself in positions where, literally positions, where he's not being a trusted husband and father, and it leads to divorce, I mean, you're not going to have women who are going to feel safe to stay at home and take care of their kids. If he's gambling away all his money or spending all of his money on other things that aren't providing for the family, whether it be his father or somebody else, a mother is not going to be able to dedicate herself and her life to taking care of her kids because she's going to need to go out and earn money because her husband isn't good with money. I mean, that's why having a husband who is, you know, good with money is a huge thing. And I don't want to make the role of a husband and father solely about finances, because it's not just about that. But if a man can't provide that security with finances, he's not going to be able to have a woman who can stay at home and nurture and take care of the children. And another thing I do agree with, which this might be controversial, but, you know, Andrew Tate talked about his father not really being around that much, and because he was such a great father, he didn't have to be around all that much because he got the job of being a father done in a short period of time, like that kind of concept. I don't know what he specifically meant by that, because the representation he's giving of his father didn't really seem to me like the best representation of what a father is. But I do agree with that in the sense that when it comes to being a father, it's not just about quantity, it's about quality. And I do believe that if a man is going out and living his purpose, he's living his purpose, he is actually out, he's driven, and he is showing the representation of what a driven masculine leader is, he doesn't have to be home with his children all the time. That's not to say that making time to spend with your children isn't important, it absolutely is, but that representation of being that masculine leader, as long as the children know that the father is a masculine leader and is living his purpose, he's providing a home for his family and this and that, when he is with his kids, then his kids are still going to see him as being an inspiration. They're still going to see him as that protector and provider. That said, when a father is with his kids, it's more important that he be completely present with them. I mean, this goes for relationships too, any type of relationships, whether it be romantic or whether it be, you know, parent-child or anything, is that, you know, 1 hour of complete and total presence by the masculine with a child, with a partner, with like that 1 hour is gonna mean more than like 3 days straight of a masculine being just there and not being fully present. Masculine presence is so powerful when it is quality and focused presence. So I don't know if that's what Andrew Tate was talking about in this particular clip, but I will say that I do agree that a father does not have to be present all the time. He doesn't have to be just sitting there watching cartoons with his kids all the time in order to be a good father. It's more important that when a father is present, that he be fully present with the child. It's not about the quantity of time that a father spends with his kids. It's about the quality of that time, about how present is he with his kids in that moment. So fathers don't necessarily have to constantly be with their kids. I would argue that you know, fathers being masculine driven leaders in their field, actually living their passion and purpose, is actually going to be even more inspiring to the children than a father just, you know, sitting around and watching TV with their kids. A lot of men think that like they have to either choose to be ambitious in their careers or to spend time with their kids, and as the masculine you don't really need to choose that, particularly if as a masculine being you are actually protecting and providing for your family so that you have a mother who is able to be there to care and nurture for the children as a mother would. I do think that as boys start to step into manhood, it is that much more important for them to be spending time with their father or father figure or other masculine elders. But that said, that time doesn't just have to be like sitting around and watching cartoons or something. Like, that's not necessarily productive. There was like a commercial for some kind of it was some kind of service or whatever where you could call up someplace and they would give you the names of like handyman or repairman or something in the area or something. And there was this father that was like, I don't want to spend my weekends working on my house. I called something, something, something so that I could actually spend time with my kids. And I remember being so angry watching that commercial because I was like, you know, it would be great quality time to spend with your kids, teaching your sons how to fix things around the house. Like, that's the, like, there's this idea that fathers are like, well, no, I don't want to spend my time fixing things around the house or doing yard work or doing this. I want to spend time with my kids. It's like, teach your kids how to do those things. Like, those are things that men need to do, in the same way that, you know, I would make the argument that, you know, moms would be like, I don't want to spend time in the kitchen, I want to spend time with my kids. It's like, well, teach your kids to cook in the kitchen. I mean, like, it's passing down that knowledge and passing down that experience. That's important. It's quality time. It's not about like, okay, well, let me get my chores done so that, you know, we can go play video games or we can go, you know, watch cartoons or something. It's about like, hey, let's get the kids involved in cooking or fixing something or whatever. I mean, boys and girls. I know my mother always talks about some of her best memories as a kid where, you know, my grandfather was a contractor and she used to follow my grandfather around the house, like handing him tools and this and that. And now she knows how to fix things around the house, which is good because my father doesn't, but that's a whole other topic. It's about teaching your kids the skills that you know so that they can carry them on in the rest of their life. I mean, look, I dated a guy who knew nothing about cars, and I remember it used to drive me crazy because his father was an auto mechanic, and I'd be like, dude, you have no excuse to not know how to fix a car. Like, no excuse. Like, there's none. Like, you literally lived and grew up your whole life with an auto mechanic who was dying to teach you about cars. So the fact that you don't know how to fix a car is like totally on you, right? So these were just some thoughts on some of these controversial alpha male accounts. I always use the term alpha male in quotes because I don't really think that they're representational of alpha males. And I think of alpha males, I think of strong masculine leaders, but I feel like they've hijacked that term into alpha males being about guys who were just playing around, playing the field, which I've talked about this in so many videos that I really do not believe that when a man steps into his healthy masculine energy that he wants to spend his time running around with a lot of different women. It's just a distraction for him, right? When a man is truly stepped into his healthy masculine energy, he's gonna have a passion and purpose that's gonna be greater than himself. He's gonna wanna settle down with a feminine partner who is in the most support of that purpose. Running around with a lot of different women is not healthy masculine energy because it's just a distraction for him. It's not. And that's actually the reason. It's interesting how many of these accounts talk about the fact that when men turn 40 or they get into their 40s, that like, well, that's when they reach the most success, so now they can start running around with like young girls. And it's actually the reason why most men reach their peak of success in their 40s, 50s, things like that, is because they're not spending their time wasting their energy running around after young girls, which is what a lot of men in their 20s and 30s are doing. They're wasting all that energy chasing after women, running around after women, fooling around. Like, you're not going to reach your peak level of success. And I'm not saying that men doing that can't make a lot of money. What I'm saying is that masculine success and finding your purpose in life, money is definitely part of it for sure. It's not the only part of it. So there's a lot of men out there who might make a lot of money, maybe have a lot of success in a certain area, and still be running around with different women. So I'm not saying that that's not possible. You're not going to reach your true full purpose and potential if you're wasting your energy running around with a lot of different women, particularly if you have addictions like gambling, drinking, you know, drugs, different things like that. Like, you're not going to step into that true masculine leadership and find your true purpose. You're not. You know, and look, if you're listening to this and you're like, hey, I don't care, I still want to be like Andrew Tate, and I'm like, well, then that's fine. You know, maybe that my content just isn't for you, and that's perfectly fine. And I'm not saying that I disagree with everything he says. Even in this particular clip, there's some things I agree with, some things I disagree with. I had a man comment on my TikTok one time arguing that he didn't like something that I had to say about marriage, and that he was like, I wish Kevin Samuels was alive because he would shoot this down. And I was like, look, I'd be more than happy to have a debate with him about it. And obviously, if he was still alive, I don't say anything that I'm not willing to back up. These were just my thoughts on some of these things, this Andrew Tate clip, some of my thoughts on these sort of like alpha male people in podcasts and things like that. So, you know, I'm always open to respectful comments, and, you know, obviously if you get disrespectful, I'm out. But if you want to have a respectful discussion about this stuff, I'm always open to it. So, you know, you can leave a comment in the comment section below, or, you know, any topics you'd like me to talk about or like me to cover. This was actually a requested topic, so I'm always open to hearing your suggestions. If you enjoyed this video and found it helpful, please give it a big thumbs up. Be sure you subscribe to my channel. If you want to learn the art of feminine communication, you can check out my masterclass. Details in the description box below, along with links to my social media accounts. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I hope you join me next time.